This time on Meet the Wolfpack, we're going to talk with men's volleyball player Blake Majcher. And Blake joins us from Brandon, Manitoba. You're one of the most eastern members of the Wolfpack.
Yeah, there's only two of us in the program on men's volleyball from Manitoba. Randy Grunman being from Winnipeg, which is further east than Brandon, but both coming from Manitoba, we both know what it's like to travel a good distance.
So why TRU? Why Kamloops, Blake?
Partially, it was just based on Pat Henley's recruiting me. When I came out here, being from the prairies, I certainly enjoyed the landscape and the atmosphere out here. The weather is incredible compared to home. I played 2 years in Medicine Hat also in the Alberta Colleges Athletic Conference, and going from Brandon to Medicine Hat to Kamloops was a pretty easy transition between the three cities. They're all relatively the same size and feel a lot like home.
Nice. So as you mentioned, you spent 2 years going to school and playing volleyball in the college ranks. Let's talk volleyball first of all. What adjustment did you have to make moving to the Canada West and CIS?
Everything just comes at a faster pace. There aren't any weak links on teams, and there's no plays where you can take a break. I remember in my first weekend of preseason match, my first year, there were plays that I could have made with my eyes closed in Medicine Hat that were just that much at such a higher level here. So it was just a lot more being ready sooner and being aware of all the attacks that could come at you, not just being able to count or expect one thing happening in a certain play.
Well, what position do you play?
I play libero, the defensive position.
And so obviously you have to be a strong defensive player. But you've played also out.
I have.
You not? Yeah.
I've got a good experience of playing multiple positions. I set when I was younger, and then moved to hitting when my team didn't have anyone else who could do that skill. So I've had a good chance to see different aspects of the court. I started playing libero halfway through my second year in Medicine Hat, my first year. I started playing on a Wednesday, and I started that Friday was my first match at libero, which is quite a big change, obviously. But at the time, it was the only way I was going to get myself on the court, which was all I wanted. So I was happy to fill that role for my team.
Did you, as a libero, and those people not familiar with volleyball probably don't realize, the libero does not serve.
Right.
But you come in to serve at certain times.
I have, yes. When Matt Kruger is starting, there's many times where I'll come into the rotation to serve for different players and then play defense and go through the back row rotation, and sometimes I get to stay in the front row for a little bit. And I definitely enjoy getting to serve. Something that's come up with our team this year, and through a video by Dan Lewis, the national team libero, he comments on how, as a libero, you only have an opportunity to make offensive plays through your defense, to make what he calls a plus play for your team. You don't get a chance to serve or block or get a kill or anything like that. Everything is just to stop a negative for the most part. If it comes down to you, everything or someone else on your team has to respond in order for your team to get a point, not just based on what you're doing. And so at times that is frustrating as a libero, and coming from experience of being a hitter and being the dependent player on your team. You want to be the player to get to finish off a rally, to get the big block or a big kill or a big ace or something like that. And it is a little limiting at this stage of the game to not be able to finish off those plays. Sometimes I still find myself just aching to get that set after a big dig and get that excitement, but at the same time you're satisfied by making a big play.
You're a real student of the game.
I try to be.
Yeah. So do you see coaching in your future?
Eventually, absolutely. I haven't had a chance yet to give back to the sport, really. I've done a few coaching clinics through the Wolfpack program and summer camps. And that is an aspect that I really do look forward to getting to share with the next generation of volleyball players. You definitely learn a lot, especially from switching provinces, switching positions, switching skill levels. There's all sorts of things that I've learned in my 5 years of volleyball that shaped how I see the game and how I see how I want to be coached and how I think other players would want to be coached.
Does it seem like 5 years to you?
Absolutely not. No. Yeah, just different friends in the league who are also in their fifth year. Just this past weekend against Windsor, there was a guy off that team who played from Portage La Prairie, Manitoba. And him and I played quite a bit against each other in grade 12 and are one of the few men's volleyball players from that grad year who are still playing.
Oh, nice.
And we got a chance to kind of reminisce on that and realize how interesting it was that of all these players who are much more heavily recruited and admired than we are some of the few, or two of the few, who are still going at this point.
Blake, talk to me a little bit about being a role model, because I know when Pat Henley, like for instance today, we looked he was looking for some volunteers. You always step up. So tell me a little bit about that aspect of being a role model, and especially here in the community of Kamloops where people know you.
being a role model truly depends on the environment that you're in, and it depends on how people are willing to absorb what you're saying or doing in the community. And especially being in a smaller city like Kamloops and Medicine Hat and Brandon, you are looked to with that respect, and there is a certain title that comes along with being a Wolfpack athlete that the city respects and admires, and it provides you with the opportunity to go out into the community and do these things. With part of my education, I do plan on getting into the education program eventually, and through our partnership with schools, I've had the chance to go into a French immersion school in Kamloops and give a few lessons and work one-on-one with students, and even just having that aspect encourages me for my future in education, as well as that individual opportunity is benefited by having the status or title of being a Wolfpack athlete.
Nice. Fifth-year player, and there's a few of you this year, four of you. Do you find that the younger players, and you have a lot of younger players this year, you wind up like having to take them aside and say, "Great, this is how we act on the road," or you got to bear down and do your schoolwork, that sort of stuff. Have you been in those situations already?
To an extent, I think this group that we have is a very level-headed group. Stu Ritchie and I, a fellow fifth year, had been having this conversation just this week about how we need to talk to the rookies, or whether we need to talk to the rookies, and I reminded Stu of how him and I would have been, how him and I would have acted in our first years, and the growing process that occurs as an athlete and as an academic athlete, and the priorities that you realize that you need to make, and the changes that you need to make in your daily life. You can't go about things as you would in high school, or there aren't necessarily the same safety nets like there were in high school, and there's much more onus on you to get things done. And when it comes to volleyball, especially what I've learned in my 5 years, is just the need to be able to adapt to the situation and fill whatever role the coach has for you. It hasn't been a glamorous or easy road for me to make it to where I am, and something that I appreciate and value is just the need for players to be able to adapt. You can't think that everything that you did in high school, work in university, and all the things that you were successful at, and all the things you got away with, that you can keep doing. Playing in the CIS is a huge jump and is a huge responsibility, and so in order to be able to fill that new role, you have to be able to learn on the fly and change with your surroundings.
What was it like playing your first CIS game in Brandon?
That was an incredible weekend. It was also the grand opening and home opener of the brand new Healthy Living Center in Brandon. I'd grown up in the old gym, the small, ancient relic of a barn that was. It was a second home to me from my childhood, which was incredible. I didn't have a ton of attachment to the volleyball program because it was young, just like the TRU program is. Right. And so I was big into basketball. My dad did the stats for all those games, for the basketball games, and still does. My sister now does the stats for the volleyball games. So it was very exciting for me to get to go and face off against Brandon in Brandon. Incredible seeing so many people in the stands, and like I said, even on the scorers table, and I know the sports writers in the city, and all these connections that I haven't had the opportunity to enjoy playing in Alberta and playing in BC so much, Saskatchewan, playing all over, where I do know people from going to school in Alberta, but at the same time, it's nothing like going home and knowing every third person who walks in the gym by some connection, and having all these people who have seen me grow up from playing in high school and going away for so long, and then finally to get to come back was a really exciting feeling.
Butterflies?
Absolutely. There's a different level of excitement when you're playing for people that you know and have such great care for you and have seen you grow so much. There's a different level, not necessarily of expectation from the crowd, but more from yourself to perform in a way that would make them proud. And you know that obviously they're just excited for you and happy that you're there, and whether you get on the court or whatever is totally besides the point, and they're just happy to see you still playing. But at the same time, even just seeing the blue and gold of Brandon gets my blood boiling a little bit, and we had a chance to play against them in the Canada West bronze medal match last year, and that was really exciting for me. Again, I know their coach from growing up in the Brandon volleyball scene, and there's only a few players that are local now in the Brandon program, so I don't have huge connections to them, but even just from my sister being associated with the volleyball team, she's got good friends off the men's and women's team.
Right.
And it is exciting to kind of, not necessarily with an attitude, but to be able to say to Brandon, like, look, this is what I have been able to do since leaving, and I've grown a lot as an athlete, I'm playing a new position. And that was one of the biggest compliments that I received after our match there, which was 2 years ago now. We didn't play at home last year, where Brandon came to Kamloops. And after my first match in my first year here against Brandon, Grant Wilson, the Brandon head coach, said that the plays I was making in that game weren't plays that he had seen high school Blake make, right. Which was a neat thing to not that I needed it, but for him to realize or for him to admit that they didn't see something in me in high school that they perhaps should have, or they should have given me a chance.
Right.
I'm certainly excited and very proud of where I've come, and attending TRU has been an amazing opportunity for me. But it is still a cool feeling when you get that recognition back home.
Just before I let you go, because you've had this experience, as a student, you went to a college, now you've gone to a university. What are the big differences, and why should someone come to TRU?
To be honest, there wasn't a huge difference. The schooling, it's called a junior university. So all the courses that I were taking were first and second year university courses. In terms of size, again, there wasn't a huge jump between Medicine Hat College, which is a small college, and Thompson Rivers, which is a small university. So in that way, there was, whereas in Medicine Hat, you'd have one hallway per subject matter. There was a business wing, there was an arts wing, there was a science wing, whereas in Kamloops, there's a building for each one of those. But at the same time, it's not a huge mega campus like you'd find at UBC or U of M in Manitoba or anything like that. So that was the change, was having more. To be honest, it was just almost the class size and building size. Otherwise, the classes were generally the same sort of style of teaching, which is a big enough jump, obviously, from high school. But from the college to university, it wasn't a huge difference for me.
Blake, thanks for this.
Thank you very much.
Blake Majcher joins us from the men's volleyball team at Thompson Rivers University.